Hey YouTube friends, today we get the opportunity to sit down with the founders of the Reclaim Project and field some hot topic community issues and questions that we've heard from people like you. So I'm excited to share this with you guys and for you to hear what they have to say about it. As you watch and after you watch, please subscribe, like, and share this video. And also in the comments box, ask some more questions. We're going to continue these Q&As with the founders of the Reclaim Project as we move through. So have fun watching this, and thank you so much. Hey, what's up everybody? It's Kenny here. Today we are doing a special edition of our regular Reclaim Project programming. I'm sitting here today with Shawn, Kingsbury, and Aaron Allen. These guys are the founders of the Reclaim Project, and we're going to take this opportunity to talk with them about some hot topic items that are going on in our city and really in our society today all over the place. So this should be awesome. It's going to be we're just going to have some conversations, and I want to go through this today, and in the comments, I want you to make comments. What are some other questions that you guys might have that we could address for you? Because we are in this boots on the ground 24/7. This is our lives. So we want to come back to this, in a couple months with some fresh questions, some fresh perspective. And answer some new questions that you guys might have that you're thinking about too. So make some comments on this. So as you notice, we got a little upgrade to our sign here. This is called Shawn Kingsbury Blue. That's what.
yes, it is.
So every single tool that we have, that we own, which is thousands and thousands of tools, is spray painted this color. So anyway,
the guys hate it.
Shout out to Shawn Kingsbury Blue here. So so this should be fun. So thanks for joining us today. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share this video with everybody. So you guys ready to get going?
Let's do it.
All right, cool. Thanks for being with me today. Shawn Kingsbury, CEO and co-founder of the Reclaim Project. Aaron Allen, CFO and co-founder of the Reclaim Project. So you guys, there's been a lot of newspaper articles. There's a lot of things going on in our city with homelessness, outright public usage of drugs on the streets. It's out there, especially certain little pockets down, on the Pacific area, downtown Spokane, all over down there. What's going on? What should we be doing about this? Can we do anything about this? Let's have some conversations about it. Like, what do you think?
Well, what's going on is tragic and sad, really. Fentanyl is a drug of choice right now on the streets of Spokane, and really across in many, many metropolitan areas. And it's open use, it's right there, and people are camped out. And I can see certain blocks I drive past often on my way home. We used to operate a store down there, and it's really like 50, 60, 100 people on the same drug, either milling around. There's cars pulling up to buy, leaving with the product. And it was last week. I drove past it. I often, because this is what I do, I'm so curious and invested in this. So I drive down the street and my window's open, and it is as if someone took a hit and blew it in my car. Where I'm almost having this like psychosomatic experience where it's like, oh my gosh, I get this up, rolling up the windows, turning the AC on blast. And so it's a real problem. I know that there is a lot of people being brought back through Narcan down there, either by first responders or citizens, or even other people who are using who have Narcan, which is kind of mind blowing there. So it's a real situation, a real problem.
Yeah. What do you think, Aaron? What do you think about this stuff?
Recently the city of Spokane government just, brought back some of the stuff of it being illegal to, use in public. And I would just suggest that anyone driving by that sees people openly doing it to make a call to crime check. I mean, the more data they have of where this is happening is where more of the resources go to help. So I would just say that would be my first suggestion. If you see someone using open air, you never know when, a trip to jail could be the first step to detox and sobriety.
That's really good. That's really good. And we've been talking about this forever. You were just telling me, like, there's so many different people that are being affected by this. It's not just the user, right? Talk through that a little bit.
I think what we're really talking about is compassion. And I mean, we all have a huge heart and compassion for the person in active use, the person recovering, but we also need to have quite a large amount of compassion for everyone else around that affected by it. The businesses that are affected by it, the safety of people who are in the area affected by it. It bleeds into all sectors of life. And so, we need to, it is something that needs to be addressed, and we need to have it on the forefront. It is not compassionate to let someone destroy their life right there in the middle of the street. I probably know 100 guys. I could sit there and make 100 guys who it was pressure from law enforcement that pushed them into treatment, pushed them into detox, and then ultimately they were able to make the decision to change their life. But it is like, I don't think it's compassionate to allow people to do drugs. I just don't.
I agree. Yeah, and you would agree with that?
I would agree with that. I mean, I think of the guy we were talking about earlier, where the last time about 6 months ago, me and you were down there, and he had been a guy that had come through here, and he was just all messed up, and I honestly thought he would die within the next few weeks. That was my first thought with him. And then, went to jail, did like 4 or 5 months, and then did 2 months in detox. And now he's back through the door, and he's doing really well. I mean, he works out every day, comes to all of our classes. He doesn't live with us or anything, but the fact that he was knocking on this doorstep, and then to see where he's at now, you didn't even realize that was the same guy until I told you about 10 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is possible that someone intervenes with these people and they do get their life back.
I think that's one of the ways, from our vantage point, that allows us to be so blatant about, like, don't let them use, because we know that they can recover. We have a manager who's overdosed 13 times. And he literally has keys to every department of our organization. He drives our trucks. So we know that, and I say this all the time. Last week, I drove past someone who will be at the Reclaim Project one day.
Yep.
And that will put them on a job site, and they will have responsibilities. We know that this is not the only thing they can do in life. And being armed with that knowledge, it changes it up. It's like, yeah, of course, if the only thing they could do in life was this drug, and that was the only way they could be alive, then it would switch it up. But we see a different point of that. Yeah. We see it from a different vantage point.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I mean, these guys, there is a practical way out, and there is hope for that. I mean, you were just saying, like, we saw this guy down there 6 months ago, and now I didn't even recognize him as the same person, and I've been in the gym with him for the last 2 weeks, talking to him and doing push-ups and doing pull-ups together, and headbanging in here to some loud music, and it's just really neat, that. So, what is the practical? How can we, as a society? I mean, we are an organization that does this stuff, right? but how can we as a society practically intervene? How can we practically intervene for people that have substance abuse problems, whether that's on the street or in our families?
I mean, I think the first step, although it's probably the hardest step, is tough love. You know, you have to be able to put your foot down and not give in to people. And that's hard as a parent, you know, because I'm a parent. You know, giving people money on the streets and food on the streets and stuff, I don't think is the right answer either. I think that if you're going to give time, resources, you need to volunteer with someone that's already doing it. There's tons of organizations in Spokane that do outreach and that do this stuff on a daily basis. And in my opinion, it's much better to give them your resources and also volunteer your time with the people that are already in the trenches and take a more practical approach of how they want to help these people. And, you know, continuing to give them stuff makes it just easier. I mean, when we're talking about being on Pacific, when we're down there, it's like people are giving them phones and food and blankets and coats and everything they need. Why would they ever change if they're getting all these free handouts and then basically reinforcing this bad behavior? Like there has to be a better way than that.
One of the really interesting things that happened as we watched fentanyl hit as hard as it did is that the other drugs that we had overdose with heroin. We have people drink themselves to death, but it's a much more measurable drug. These overdoses just go. It is such a Russian roulette. Every hit of fentanyl you take, every hit from these blue pills, you don't know if that's going to be your last breath. And that being said, we had to adjust to that. There was a lot of policy out there where it was like, okay, well, if we like get all these resources in place for them and we get them to a safer place and they can get out of their fight or flight, then they're going to be able to make that choice on their own. Now we have a drug out there that every hit they take takes them closer and closer to that hit of death. And that's a real thing. That's what we're dealing with right now. So whenever we enable someone to continue to use, they're rolling their dice every single time. So when I think about like, what do we really need to implement now? We need to, as a city and a community, say that the most compassionate thing to do is to not allow people to use. Open air use, or even policies that are putting use behind doors. If my son was addicted, I want the full resources, all the resources we have, to snatch him up and say, "You're not using them, buddy. Nah, not on our watch."
Yeah.
And then allowing them to have immediate access to detox, which brings us to detox beds. A city this size, we don't have enough detox beds. If someone wants to go into detox and are ready for the process of withdrawal, that door needs to be open. And then from there, the progression is to treatment, right? And these conversations we've had forever, but at absolute minimum, and I say that as in it's probably not even an effective dose, it's 30 days. But we need to get pushing on to 60, 90-day treatments.
Yeah.
And having that access to that. That window of willingness is so small and so short. So just right there, those are two things that we can do. Is if we can open up that gateway, we're going to be able to save more lives.
And I would say that most treatment centers are funded through insurance. I think the biggest lack is on the detox side. We just don't have enough beds. And then, we go through this and they bill out insurance for all of these, exorbitant amounts of money. But then if they don't have a place to rest safely after they get out of treatment and they just go back to the same place that they were before, the resource burn and waste on that is so huge. So I would say like more detox beds and then more funding for aftercare, you know, transitional housing, sober housing. Like we turn people away every single day because we only have so many rooms, and it's like, well, if I get calls from treatment every day and I have to say no. If they don't have that next step, then all of that time that they worked hard to get that back, like if they got to go back to the same couch they were staying on that they did, what's the point?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I mean, I also want to bring up something else, is just like when everyone sees the fentanyl crisis on TV every night, you know, you see all these overdose statistics. I think what a lot of like John Q and Sally Q public don't understand, these aren't pharmaceutical grade fentanyl pills. They're not like there's this overabundance of these pills that doctors are prescribing and people are overdosing. They're black market, unregulated counterfeit pills. When you see and hear on the news, they don't really go into that. So I think a lot of people don't understand it's not a 30 milligram fentanyl pill that someone's overdosing on. They're all counterfeit. So like what Shawn was saying, it's Russian roulette. I mean, they're literally mixing batches and buckets and stuff with a stick, like, and then pressing them. It's not so simple as just like getting rid of these pharmaceutical grade fentanyl pills.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of fluctuation on the price when demand is short, but really, in essence, they're dirt cheap.
They're so cheap.
There's nothing like back in the day when you had to get like Oxycontin and everything. That was expensive, and the price will keep people, you know, it will keep your use less and less. But when you're getting down to $2, $3, $5 a pill, and then it's a high with a steep drop off, and you gotta use again. So this thing is nasty, and it's a real problem.
Yeah, and when I was like using opiates, it was like $1 a milligram. You know, that was pretty expensive. A lot of people couldn't afford that. And now you're talking about these counterfeit 30 milligram pills, like Shawn's saying, being $2. So like when we're talking about what can the public do, if you give someone $1 or $2 on the street, I mean, you could literally be signing their death warrant.
Oh, good point. Wow. Dang. All right.
It's heavy.
It is heavy.
It's heavy.
super
heavy.
It's a crisis. But like again, just from our vantage point, man, how many guys do we know? Like the one guy we were talking about earlier. Just to see him alive
is amazing.
Like he's like in here getting it in the gym. He's talking about his new place. We're having these conversations.
His dad they're hanging out with his dad, and his dad's like, you see the relief on his face to see him moving forward, because he would come in here frazzled before.
And I'm pretty sure that started on him turning himself in on a warrant. He did some deferred sentencing into treatment, and then now he's out. Which brings me to like kind of wrapping this thing up, is like the cheapest thing to do is to keep someone sober.
Yep.
Anything where like it's medically related, like so where it's treatment and detox, unbelievably expensive. Mm-hmm. On this side, where we're talking about rent or job skills training, far cheaper.
Yeah, and then there's like the ripple effect of that. Mm-hmm. You know, the law enforcement saving in costs, the emergency room. Mm-hmm. Now they're an employee paying taxes. So now we're like actually going forward and actually creating value in the community. It's just, it is far cheaper to keep someone sober and moving forward, for sure.
Yeah, and that's essentially what the Reclaim Project's all about. Like, we're creating value in these guys' lives and helping them create the most authentic version of themselves and putting that old life behind, right? Mm-hmm. But you're also creating this value in our local society with what you were just saying. Mm-hmm.
We're building. Our tagline is "We build capable men." Mm-hmm. We're building men who are capable of holding it down for their family. They're capable of holding down a job. They're capable of being a father, being present.
Being
And
a
that's why
protector of their community.
That's why it's as simple as tagline and such a powerful one is we build capable men. And right now in society, we need more capable men. You look at all the different adversities that we got going on. If we can help corral this population, that 18 to 35-year-old, that population that is just running amok and causing damage and being really lost. If we can start in everything, and I'm always a percentage guy, if we could take 20% off, 30% off, and they all became carpenters or plumbers or these people who are productive in society, then we're really moving the needle.
Yeah, that's good. So you guys talked about intervening and helping people get into detox or jail if that's what they need in detox. And you talked about 30, 60, 90 day. And speak just a little bit on what have you seen success-wise from the 30 day to the 60 day to the 90 day people that come in? Is there a huge difference of people that are successful from that have only gone through the 30 day as opposed to the 90 day?
I mean, statistically, I'm sure the numbers really lean the longer they're in treatment, the better. But I honestly just see it's the person's willingness to really change. And when they've had enough, they've had enough. Yeah. And I've seen people get out after 90 days and use that same day. And I've seen people get kicked out of treatment in 7 days and come here and get on it and get on the grind and really be ready to change and change their life. So I'm sure statistically, the longer they're sober and in treatment, the better. Obviously they have more skills and more tools in the toolbox, but I really just think it's someone's willingness to really change.
One of the really interesting things that we get to see is we get to see guys who are coming out of prison who've done long stints, right? Mm-hmm. And I always ask them, because you can get drugs in prison. You can be high in prison if you want. And I ask them, hey, when did you stop using? Or how much time in sobriety do you have? And some guys will be like, I have a year, I have 2 years, and I started this program inside of prison. And then I learned how to do my day-to-day life sober. I would say that the guys who have that situation going on have the most successful with us, by far. I actually think that we need a gap between detox and treatment of 30 days where someone can just rest their body and sleep and get nutrition. I remember when I was in treatment, my nerves were fried. My hands were shaking. I could barely listen to anything. Those words, those awesome, amazing words from all the people trying to speak into my life and how it could be, I was missing it. Because I was like something's wrong with me. I got all the aches and all the things of these post-acute withdrawals. Yeah. So I think that in a perfect world, and again, it just comes back to resources and willingness. But I really think the resources are out there. We just need to shift resources, and to start thinking about that, prolonging that medical detox and getting people healthier, and then getting them into treatment, and then getting them into aftercare somewhere like the Reclaim Project, where people can walk alongside of them and they can start living day-to-day life with boundaries and barriers and support set up. This idea of just 5 days detox, 29 days inpatient treatment, go back to your life. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It rarely works.
That's good. Okay, so we're there. Past the point of detox and treatment, and let's talk about something that we deal with a lot. Why do people relapse? Let's talk about relapse. Why do people relapse? What's the markers? Why are they doing that? Let's just have a conversation about that.
Sure.
Well, one thing so new sobriety can feel really good, and we call it the pink cloud. So I'm new in sobriety, look at me, rah, 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 I'm moving forward with my life. We've been calling it the pink cloud for forever. And when that pink cloud subsides and real life sets in, that's when the real pressure is on to stay sober. And so we'll see a lot of people drop off there. Another way that we'll see, a time when we'll see a lot of relapse is, so people's life will be going really smoothly.
Yeah.
And they're what I call a day counter. So they're just hanging on day by day. If I make it, and they're out there with this goal in mind, 90 day. So it's you're coming up, you're doing really well, and you're pushing towards this goal, and now it's day 91. And you're like, oh, I got to do this for the rest of my life. And all these emotions come up, and they actually, all they really want to do is feel like they were doing on the climb to 90, and then they'll fall off there. We work with men, so we see relationships being a man not ready to get into a relationship, steps into the relationship, there's something chaotic happens there, and they're just not able to handle that emotion. Money, like mom said, when I get 30 days, I was gonna get a car, and I was gonna get all this money to make sure that I can get my life all together. I believe these need to be gradual things. I think that instantly, like even the excitement of like, oh, finally I'm driving and look at my nice new truck, even that can really cause relapse. I mean, relapses, I relapsed 4 times in 4 years for 4 different reasons. And first one was heartbreak. Second one was too much money too fast, all these different things. So why do people relapse is that they do not have the skill sets for where their life is at.
So last couple of things. We operate a construction company here, and we have seen so many success stories just by teaching a man to work with his hands and giving him purpose in that. Why do you think that? Why do we do that? Why do we do this? And why do you think it's so important? Talk to me about that.
Well, who would have thought that construction could be this amazing modality to turn someone's life around and to like anchor them? But then once you've established it, and now that we are literally using it for that purpose, it makes a lot of sense. I think there's a ton of pride. You could get a really sense of accomplishment and pride with the work that you do. It can keep the mind busy. Putting stuff together can keep the mind busy. We operate a unique construction company, as in we're hyper flexible. So we allow guys to have days off when they're not feeling emotionally up to it or physically up to it, because construction can be brutal on your body. So there is getting into like construction shape for reals. And what we've done is turn, and it's going to sound crazy, we've turned construction into like a therapeutic model. And a recovery. So we run a recovery-based construction company, and there's lots. I'll let you spark some more reasons.
Sure. So basically, like most construction sites aren't recovery-based. I mean, you got the crotchety old guy, drank all night, hates his job, not going to teach the new guy anything. Where I think all of our guys that would typically fit under that in a construction site are really guys that are wanting to mentor people and wanting to like steer the young guys away from all the hardships that their addiction and lifestyles really cost them. And I think that when you have 6, 7, 8 guys in a program on a job site, a lot of the talk is about recovery. They're not talking about what party they're going to go to on our Friday and Saturday night. They're actually talking about their experiences and their stuff they've learned here. And I think that bond and that camaraderie really really acts as like a secondary meeting and program for us. And I went fishing with one of our old like crotchety, gristly guys yesterday, right? And you know, he told me, he said he's coming up on 5 years sobriety, and spent most of his life in prison. And he told me that if there was an option like this when he was younger, he thinks that he would have circumvented a lot of the wasted time in his life. And now he preaches this. He's a lead, and now he preaches this to the guys that are on his crew, the younger guys that might not have figured it out. I mean, I think that really sums up like why it's so effective, and they look up to him.
Yeah.
You know, he would have been the guy in prison. You know, he's tatted up and strong, and no one's taking advantage of him, and he's a leader, and now he's a leader for us and for change. And he's been through some horrific stuff in his life, and you know, he told me, I think I finally figured it out. It's been 5 years since I stuck a needle in my arm. And it was like, okay, this guy gets it. And having that kind of guy around that would draw anyone into him, good or bad, to have that on the good side is super incredible. And we're really lucky to have guys like that. And, you know, so are like all the people in our crew.
You know, we're answering a real need out there. I mean, we need construction workers, and we can tell a guy that, like, so we have an element of attraction, as in like, hey, we'll give you a job. You want to work? We're going to get you that job. And we can also turn around in good faith and be like, if you learn this skill, if you can do what Shane does, it's $100,000 a year. Like, and this is a way, and I talked about like that slow on ramp into responsibilities and everything. I love it when a guy comes into the program and just starts building skill, and then all of a sudden he's like, hey, I'm gonna go out on my own. And I'm like, sweet, let me know if you need to borrow a dump trailer or something, like what can we do to help you as you like go on this field. So we can build real careers. That's like a real tangible piece of what we're doing. Back to what Aaron was talking about when it comes to one of our core values is give more than you take. And I've watched this really take hold with some guys, and they love that the skill sets that they have in construction can help change someone else's life. They can help, and that generosity hasn't always been, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like our superintendent and myself, we grew up in the construction company where like maybe one day I'm gonna let you swing a hammer like that. Maybe one day I'm gonna let you, and like until then you're like pouring all you're doing is working on the concrete truck. Like, you're doing the hardest job there is. Yeah. But we're trying to get them skill sets right off the bat. And also we're listening to them and being like, and seeing what their interests are, and like, hey, I really like this. Or they're attracted to like a certain individual's like energy, and they'll be like, hey, I really want to go work with Shane. Or I really want to, I really want to be on that mud and tape crew. Which no one likes mud and tape. We got guys who like mud and tape.
Yep.
That's awesome. Well, there's two words that I see that you guys, as you're talking to me, that I see that the people that come into this program, they receive here that wouldn't be normative elsewhere. And first is compassion. You get compassion. Second is opportunity. These guys are getting opportunity. And that's just one thing right there that these guys probably would have never got anywhere else or have never got in their life. A lot of people don't even get opportunity. And the guys they're getting opportunity to change their life. And all the opportunities here. It's right here for you. It's your choice, right?
Sure.
It's giving them agency on their own life. And I think what you guys do with that is such an amazing thing. Because you're letting them build their own life. We can't build someone else's life for them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Personal agency is huge.
Huge. I think that's such a big reason why Reclaim Project has had the success that it has, because of that. that piece right there, giving them agency to make their own decisions, whether I'm going to go off the rails or I'm going to stay here and I'm going to grind and I'm going to work and I'm going to do this.
Yeah. Well, first, I'm pretty sure you just made up a word, and that was pretty neat. So I like that. And then I think number 2 is like, I don't want us to be sitting here like all we have is successes, right? It's like, there's many people that wash out here. There's many people that go back to prison and the street and drugs and stuff. So I don't want to sit here and act like we have nothing but success, because we don't. But for the person that is, because it's really at the end of the day, it's on them. You know, this agency that we give them is either a sink or swim moment. And so it's like, we only have enough space. And if you're not ready to change and do what it takes, then you're not going to be a good fit for us. And, you know, not to say many a times when they're not a good fit, they don't go through more trials and tribulations and come back and get it right that time. So I just don't want everyone listening at home to think that like we're the end all be all for recovery and men's stuff. But for the person that is ready and willing to do the work, we are a good fit. So I just want to clarify that, because, you know, we talk a lot about our wins, but we have a lot of losses too. So for sure.
I will speak on that for sure. And this is as someone who's now founded multiple recovery organizations, right? I am a firm believer that we need many unique and different style of recovery programs. Like the more, like we need like surf clubs that are recovery based, where the guy who loves surfing can be around all these guys who've recovered and still love surfing. Mm-hmm. We need, and that's where we start looking at the spectrum, and the Reclaim Project works a particular part of the spectrum incredibly well.
Yeah.
That part of the spectrum, no one does it better than us.
Yeah.
But there's another part of the spectrum that we don't serve very well. And so I just wanted to throw that anecdote out there that like, and there is guys who come into our program and they're just looking to get out of trouble. They're just looking to make the pain stop. And we'll recognize that right away, and we'll be like, it's just a matter of time till they relapse. But we're still going to give them the same level of support and care. But I'm good with having them here because I think they can get a taste of what it could be like.
Yeah.
And so it's like, hey, this is what it could be like. And also, hey, when you're like blocking me out when I'm talking in class, right? And all the times you like wanted to shun me off about yoga or whatever, like when you're back in the streets or you get back into treatment, like maybe you're gonna hear that, oh, Shawn was talking about how anxiety can be a real antidote, or that yoga can be a real antidote to anxiety, or that like, maybe I should start moving my body, or maybe I should give more than I take, as a way of getting neurologically past the addiction trap that I am in. So I like sending them out with a belly full of Reclaim Project, and then hopefully they stay alive, hopefully they make it back into sobriety, and then they can take some of the resources and the skill sets that they've learned here.
That's good. That's good. Well, you just said there has to be all sorts of different recovery modalities and programs, and so that brings me into my last point here. My last thing is, we also operate a transitional sober living company. Talk to us about why that's important. Why that's an important piece of healthy, long-term sobriety.
You can start there.
Sure. I mean, I think we touched on it earlier about, you know, what is really needed, why do relapses happen, you know. At the end of the day, you have to have a safe place to lay your head at night. Yeah. And, you know, what I've really been seeing a lot with a lot of the money that came through COVID is they're giving people apartments that aren't qualified for apartments, right? And that now they're getting evicted, and now they're running out of funding, and now you're souring landlords want to help people in recovery and give people chances. And so I think, like with our transitional housing, when you have to learn to live again with other people that are going to hold you accountable, is a very good first step towards living on your own again. Shawn says it a lot. He says, like, if your room's not clean in our transitional house, when you get an apartment, the likelihood of it being clean is very low. And so it's like, it's the first building block of living independently is living with others with regulations and boundaries of like what you can't do, what your expectations are. And let's face it, like, you're never going to be able to live for as cheap as you can live with us. And so it's a good time for people to save money, to get really situated, to move on to their own independent living.
That's good.
I think there's huge value, and I could probably come up with 25 reasons why we need more transitional housing and why transitional housing is important for that first step out of treatment. It obviously, if someone doesn't have a place to lay their head, that's a giant problem. That's kind of a no-brainer. Where I'm seeing some really interesting conversations take place is when someone says to me, I have a wife and kid in a home that I could go back to, but I'm not ready. I don't have the skill sets to take on that responsibility. Like I need, and that's wise because their ultimate goal is to become that man that can go back into that home, and they're just like, hey, like I think I'll start using again in that situation. I'm just not ready. And a lot of what we're talking about today is like the skill sets to live. Do you have the skill sets to be sober and
Have agency.
Yeah, and I wish someone would have, I say it all the time now. Like you walk through that door, you're out of ABH, I'm not going to name drop any treatment center. You're coming out of treatment, and if you think you got all these skill sets and you're ready to slay the world, like I did coming out of treatment, you're so wrong. You are wrong. You do not yet have the skill sets for a life of sobriety. And what sober transitional housing does is help you be around getting the skill sets and gathering the skill sets. There's a financial component that makes it just easier. Like you don't have to afford an apartment and all the bills that come along with it. So you can ease into it. It's just one payment a month kind of thing. And even that payment is an accountability factor.
Yeah.
Like we say it all the time. It's like if you we see it when people are fully funded, right? So they have an agency that fully funds them, and that there's a relaxation level, but when you don't want to get too relaxed, that you actually want to still be building your life, right? So that piece of like I have this small amount that I have to pay. It's a good pressure to have, but not too large of an amount where it's going to stress me out and it's going to push me over the edge. Sober transitional housing is, again, like Aaron said, there's a teaching mechanism. We're not really big on like sending managers over and forcing these rules, right? We want the collective of the house to learn how to communicate with one another, to learn how to like in a proper way help motivate someone. Hey man, this second day in a row I've seen your dish in the sink. Being able to learn how to do that with one another, being able to like be respectful of the people around you, all of that. Like I'm turning my TV down at 9 p.m. because I don't want to keep my housemates up. It's the same thing when they go to an apartment. And now you like learning that respect, learning how to live in community is a small micro expression of learning how to live with a greater community.
And I think it's like a big thing that we're overlooking, not us, but this conversation is overlooking. That's someone's only option. Like 90% of our guys are homeless, at a shelter, or in transitional housing. They don't have an option of anything else. Their credit's messed up, they have evictions, they have felonies. I work with guys every day. It's super hard to get housing. So it's like, it's transitional housing or almost nothing. And that's super important.
Yeah, and I also there is something to note, and it's tough. We are asking men to become men. And when the family, as in mom and dad, or aunts and uncles, or grandma and grandpa, when they open up that couch for their son, you're not asking them to be a grown man.
Yeah.
And I say mom's couch is where recovery goes to die. Because I've seen it so many times. And mom's coming from a big heart in a great place, but in reality, that guy needs to be around men that are going to lift him up, hold him accountable, even let the mirror neurons start taking place and having them start mirroring the behavior and the conversation and the language around recovery. When you just go hunker down, I did it, my mom did it. My mom let me go crash on her couch when I burned all my bridges and I had nowhere to go. Of course, that's what moms do. But what we need to do is like have that conversations with family and be like, no, they need to be in a program of recovery. And same thing with permanent housing. It's like we spend all this money and resources to permanent house someone, and they have an ability to back out of a recovery program. Like that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense at all because like all you did was delay the clock.
Yeah.
That's good, you guys. I think we pretty much solved all the problems of the world.
Made up a word or two.
Made up a word or two.
Yeah, I love
When we
it.
start flowing, it's like we could talk forever about this subject.
Agreed.
Yeah. I mean, that just shows how passionate we are about it as recovering, all three of us being recovering addicts ourselves. So, thank you guys for taking time to do this. I know we're all super busy, but this is super important to show people what we're doing, what we're seeing, and letting them be a part of it. And so, thank you for watching this. Like I said, make some comments on this video. Let us know what are some other questions that you might have, and we'll redo this in a couple months with some of the questions that you guys posed to us. And we'll just keep doing that. And I want to say thank you to our sponsors. I want to say thank you to Life Center Church. I want to say thank you to True Hope Church and our newest sponsor, Summit Church. And then I want to say thank you to Living Water. I want to say thank you to Zeke's Pizza and Fleet Feet. Thank you guys. We love you. And we're going to keep just grinding out here doing what we do best. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.